Hello and welcome. My name is Rosa Mulraney, and this talk is called Raising Consciousness Through Feminist Pedagogy in Animation. Before I start the talk, I just want to give a content warning that this does have adult content in this presentation, which could be considered explicit content. The presentation will be discussing women's health, specifically pelvic floor health, and there will be discussions in and around gynecological health and cartoon illustrations of a vulva. This talk focuses on one case study of a project that we have run here at Falmouth University. Every year on the animation degree, we like to give our second year animation students the opportunity to work for a live brief client. These live brief clients are chosen because they cover topics that we feel are important for the community. We choose topics that wouldn't normally have the opportunity to have animation made for them, and so often live briefs will centre around charity work or for good causes. As someone who has lived experience of pelvic organ prolapse, and as an avid listener of Why Mums Don't Jump, the podcast, I suggested to our team on the animation course that Helen Ledwick, who's the creator of Why Mums Don't Jump, would make a great live brief client for our students, and felt very passionate about the project, knowing how difficult it is to have first-hand experience of, and also how little is known about it out in the community. I was lucky enough to be able to attend La Femme International Film Festival for the premiere of the film, and it meant I was able to gather some feedback and testimonials from participants and audience members. And what came through was people were very impressed about tackling such a taboo subject, and there were even suggestions that this may be the first time that the lived experience of pelvic organ prolapse has been put on the big screen. So the project started with a brief provided by Helen Ledwick, and what was brilliant was Ledwick was bringing her professional expertise from industry. She's got a background in producing radio. She's been working with a designer to create a professional brand for her podcast, Why Mums Don't Jump. And so she was bringing with her some strong ideas about the type of brand that she's developed, which has a very positive angle, wants to stay positive and upbeat in comparison to the quite negative lived experience of dealing with pelvic health problems. If you've not seen the film, it is available. You can just go to whymumsdon'tjump.com/film. I'm bringing my personal story to the students, and it was very challenging. I was very inspired by Helen Ledwick, whose first episode on her podcast was her own personal story, which she called The Ass Kick. And having this personal stories, believing whether they have value and should be used as a live brief client, was quite a barrier to overcome. It's quite nerve-wracking to bring that kind of experience to the workplace and to the classroom. And myself and Ledwick were very nervous just before briefing the students about whether we would be well received. And I have to say, we were blown away by the positive response of the animation cohort, who are mixed gender cohort. They had 3 choices to choose from, and Why Mums Don't Jump was the most popular vote from students. And as you can see from a quote here from a student, "I must work on this live brief. I don't care what it takes. I must work with Helen." So there was a real passion from the student body to work on this project, and I think what we'd underestimated was how much pelvic health affects the students themselves. They've had their own negative experiences in their lives. It's affected their parents, so they can kind of relate to it from that point of view. And it's something to be aware of, that these students are living it as well, and if they're not living it, their parents or their siblings are living it. So there was a lot more connection and passion from the students than we anticipated, and it was absolutely delightful. So as I mentioned, Helen Ledwick was bringing her professional industry expertise to the project with the branding. And here I can bring in some theory that's explaining what's going on with this project. Sarah Ahmed's work around sweaty concept really resonates with this case study. The lived experience is very challenging and strenuous to live, and trying to bring it into the public domain. There are so many barriers. It's a lot of hard work behind the scenes to get this story out there and to collaborate. So to give some context to the motivations for this project and to the obstacles we faced, in 2022, the UK government announced a women's health strategy to tackle the inequalities surrounding women's health, which called for sweeping changes, including the initiation of dedicated women's health centres. So that gives you some sense of there is data behind this that meaningfully backs this up. And there's a lot of personal experience, a lot of evidence of it, not only from myself and from Helen Ledwick, but in the interviews on Helen Ledwick's podcast and in the books that you can find in the marketplace. One thing that comes up a lot is women saying, no one told me this could happen. So there's a lot of secrecy surrounding pelvic health. Doctors who talk to their patients about why it's so secret and why there is a lack of information have been quoted as explaining it's because women can't handle the truth and they would be too scared to give birth. Or another doctor's response has been, women are designed badly. So there's a lot of patriarchal bias against the inevitability of this just being a woman's lot in life, or that she can't handle information. In requests for funding that I've been part of, one of the reviewers' response for the funding request said, but what about the boys being overlooked in classrooms? Now, while that is also an important topic, it doesn't mean that women's health isn't important. Another response I've had for a funding request has been being told that this idea is not innovative enough, even though this film is potentially the first time the lived experience of pelvic organ prolapse has been brought to the big screen. And I've also had colleagues' response at work, this is just what happens to women. I've also had responses such as, you don't want to scare the students. So there is a kind of pervasive stance on this, both from experts like doctors and from colleagues and kind of the general public, that has this bias against this is just what happens. And it does, for me, resonate with the whole reasons about why Me Too came about as well. That the casting couch was just known about but kind of just ignored. And so feminism helps to describe the work that we do on the course. We use short films as activism. We see students as having the potential as agents of change. We work side by side with students as co-creators, both with staff and with industry professionals. We see that there is value in bringing personal stories onto the screen and women's personal stories onto the screen and their lived experience. We're looking for projects that question the status quo, and we are interested to draw attention to inequalities. And you can see here a lovely piece of artwork created by Bonnie Harris. And Harris took it upon herself to design a very diverse range of characters for this project. And as she explained, why not? Why would the characters in the film not be diverse, seeing as how pelvic health can impact everyone? And so she's done a brilliant job here of not only diversity, but across the board, including body shape as well, which has been fantastic. What's brilliant about animation is this visual storytelling. You can visually show internal thoughts through metaphor, and you can exaggerate. You can really bring home internal emotions and externalize them. And so it's a really great medium, especially if people don't want to be identified. They might want their story on screen, but not necessarily themselves. And so they can have a character represent them. And what's brilliant about the opportunity to work with metaphor is you can convey very quickly some very complex topics in a short amount of time. And this is where animation is really bringing some strength as a medium to work with, when working on a taboo topic. And so during this process of deciding to create this brief, working with an external partner, working with the students to create the film, creating the film itself, what I've noticed the students have been working with is this moving between private and public spaces. So I've made this diagram here, you're looking at the private despair. So then there's shame, they're not sharing their stories, they're alone. Potentially they may be in their bedroom, maybe they might be talking to their partner in their bedroom. Maybe that might be the first person they talk to about what's happening with them. They may then move on to the hospital and talk to the doctors about their experience. But initially that can be a very closed and kind of private experience. And then much like what we're doing in the real world as activists, but also represented by the students in the film, is moving out into public spaces, taking part in events, taking part in marathons. And these kind of things are actually happening in real life. Women who are passionate about pelvic health are, dressing up and doing sponsored runs. And what's brilliant about working with Helen Ledwick is her passion and her natural kind of positivity to bring joy, to bring fun to an otherwise quite negative subject matter. And as you can see here in these brilliant photographs, this is us opening up an exhibition. So the film Why Mums Don't Jump was translated into an exhibition, a public exhibition at the Fish Factory in Penryn in the UK. And this was done as part of an unfunded route on the Being Human 2024 festival. And it was brilliant. And we brought, we tried to bring the fun. We had a giant vulva doorway. We had artwork, stills from the film painted up on canvases. We had professionals there. We had midwives. We had physiotherapists. They were there and they brought their medical expertise and diagrams and models to share. So we both had creative work and medical expertise. What has been brilliant about this project is the co-creation of knowledge and sharing of expertise. The students have been working with staff and with industry, and you can see in these photographs that we've got both academic staff here, we've got professionals from industry, we've got students. So it's a real mix of co-creating and sharing knowledge and expertise. And the photographs here are from a workshop that was run at the exhibition, where we invited both industry experts and the public to come together and join the conversation about women's pelvic health. And as you can see from these photographs, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of warmth, there's a lot of fun, there's a diversity of gender and age groups. Here are some photographs of the exhibition itself. You can see in a bit more detail the type of artwork that we had on the walls. The exhibition ran for a week. It opened on a Tuesday and closed the following Saturday. It did have an online virtual tour, which our local MP, Jane Kirkham, attended and gave her support. And so what I'm really interested in is this journey, how the conversations around pelvic health have journeyed via the creation and distribution and reflection on this film. It's journeyed through the classroom, it's been online on Instagram, it's been at the Royal Television Regional Awards, where the jury had to pass judgment on it, where it received a highly commended and special mention in the awards ceremony. It's premiered at La Femme International Film Festival. The students have been interviewed from the Hollywood red carpet about the film. And here we are again with yet more joy and glamour, which is brilliant. So we've got some images here from the Hollywood Live Today video that was created for La Femme International Film Festival. We have Aaron Michael Sanchez interviewing the students who made the film from the red carpet, asking them about the film and their experience. So wonderful bit of fun and kind of glamour. We've also got a photograph I took there of the students picking up their highly commended at the Royal Television Society Regional Awards. So again, this topic may be quite negative, but we can bring the fun and we can bring the glamour. And so to bring it back to the students and the student voice and the student expertise, got some lovely quotes here. Sammy Reevely, who's the director of the student film, saying here, I think our main kind of thing that we wanted to, which was part of the client brief, that we really wanted to tap into was the aspect of the audience not feeling alone, or people who are going through it not feeling alone. And what was brilliant about what the students did was they divided all of Helen Ledwick's podcasts between themselves, and they listened to all of them, and they took down the most poignant anecdotes and then edited that and re-recorded it as a new script and animated the film to that. And so there was really kind of diligent research that they did to it, and they were really passionate about bringing this lived experience to the big screen. Also, I've got a lovely quote there from a student that I overheard in class, that when Helen Ledwick gave her brief, I heard a student say, "My mum has that," which really brought home this idea that they are surrounded by pelvic health stories, whether we bring it to them or not. And so I would say in summary that what I'm noticing on this journey is this idea of moving from private despair to shared public joy. This idea of looking at both the internal versus external experiences, and the kind of contrast of the silence versus sharing these stories, and this idea of the emotional experience of kind of shame versus joy. And you can see it in a lot of the activities that are happening out in the wider world, but you can also see it in the student film, as we see here from these two contrasting stills from the film. We see someone alone, we see someone in a private space with their own thoughts, and then we transition to a very public space, a marathon, and being joined by someone else, and noticeably being held there and kind of supported. And we can see the difference from something that's very negative to something that's very positive. And what's great about the work that we're doing and about feminism is it can be about something you're trying to create. It's not a future that necessarily exists yet, but it's something that we're trying to build. And I'd like to kind of close with this brilliant quote from Aaron Michael Sanchez. This was on the Hollywood red carpet where the students were interviewed. And one of the things that he said was, "So I got to ask, why this subject? My mum has this, and I got to say, we need to talk about this." And I couldn't agree more. We need to talk about this. So if you want to join the conversation, I host an academic website called mother.com. You can also go to Helen Ledwick's website where you can find her podcast, Why Mums Don't Jump. And I just want to say thank you so much to Helen Ledwick for working with us, to Dr. Anna Miziak, who's been supervising my work, and to Adam Hill in our library. And thank you very much to Falmouth University for the support that I've had to run this project, and also to the students who made the film, Sammy Reevely, Bonnie Harris, Mia McKenzie, Tim Iowa, Caddy Cornwall Davidson, Dee McCann, Archie Saunders, and Eddie Elsmore. If you'd like to get in contact with me, you can reach me at rosa.mulraney@falmouth.ac.uk, and here are the references that I've used within the presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you found it useful.